Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Meyers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And we welcome in a gentleman today who's going to tell us everything you need to know about Oklahoma State athletics.
Yes, Chad Weiberg has joined us. He will join us after the break. The new OSU athletic director. He is a genuine cowboy. He has history at all levels of his family that are cowboy related, and we want to hear about that. But we also are pleased to have him step in and talk about what's going on in athletics at Oklahoma State University.
Well, and it's an athletic department that's on its way up and operating very well. I mean, it's well respected across the country and across men's and women's sports.
Clearly on the upturn,
that's
not
right.
the downturn.
So we'll bring Chad on and get some of the details when we return. You're watching The Verdict. We'll be right back.
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
Military service ran in my blood, starting from my father, which joined the Navy, on the Chickasaw side, my uncle, which served in the United States Army. I'm Benjamin Espinosa, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy, and I'm Chickasaw. I went to the Secretary of Defense's staff at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., which ultimately led to becoming a combat support technician for Naval Special Warfare, specifically SEAL Team 10. I think to be proud and to love your tribe, to love being Chickasaw, you also have to love being American. You also have to love everything that America stands for. Equality, perseverance, professionalism, and power. I want my family to know that their father is a good person, but also feels that he has an obligation to the country and to love this nation. Anything worth having is worth dying for. The military and the country owes me nothing. I owe it everything.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Set of The Verdict, Mick Cornett, Meyers. Ken's going to introduce today's guest.
Well, as we talked about in the open, our guest today is Chad Weiberg, the athletic director at Oklahoma State University, referred to on that last quote that you saw as a true cowboy. And I think our show today will underscore why we had that as the first quote, because that's true. Chad did both his undergraduate and his master's work at Oklahoma State University. He comes from a long line of Oklahoma State University graduates. His father was an assistant basketball coach, as a matter of fact, while Chad was growing up. Sorry to have to say, but I did want to mention that his brother Jared was on the plane in 2001 that crashed with the OSU basketball program folks on board. Chad started at Oklahoma State University in 2003 in the athletic department. He then transferred to Kansas State. We lost him for about 12 years to Kansas State. Texas Tech took him for a couple of years, and then finally he came home to be on July 1, 2021, named the new athletic director, replacing Mike Holder, a longtime guest on this show. Chad, we're really pleased to have you join us, and we hope you'll come back many, many times.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I always like to ask an athletic director, anything going on? Because you wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah.
So what are you spending your time on these days?
Well, this traditionally is a busy time of year for us anyway. This is kind of that time of year that all the sports are overlapping. Men's and women's basketball is wrapping up, wrestling is wrapping up, and heading into the spring sports, baseball and softball. Of course, spring football will get started, and spring soccer, and got track and field taking place. So, I think a couple weekends ago I was counting, and we had, I think, somewhere in the vicinity of 250 student athletes competing in 6 different states all at one point. So there's just a lot of moving parts, and but it's great, and all of them are doing well.
It seems like you've had new facilities at some stage of completion, as long back as I can remember, 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they just keep rolling out. And so what's the newest facility, and what's coming next?
Well, that we just, as you know, the latest one that we just wrapped up is O'Brate Stadium, the new home of Cowboy baseball, and this is the first season. Even though this is the 3rd season we've had the stadium, it's the first season that we'll be able to fill it to capacity with fans. The first season was canceled due to COVID. The second season we had limited capacity due to COVID.
Well, that'll throw off your revenue numbers, won't it?
When
you open up a new stadium and there's no fans for 2 years?
Yeah, and it's a beautiful, beautiful ballpark and built for fans, and so we're excited to be able to put fans in it and have everyone enjoy it. And so we continue to make improvements on our facilities. We just put in a new field for the softball complex, and we've just completed a complete renovation of the cross-country course. So completely resodded, moved dirt, and irrigated the entire cross-country course. We've already hosted one NCAA national championship there, and are getting ready to host another NCAA national championship at the Griner Family Cross Country Course. And so we'll continue to do that. We are working with architects now to identify what the next big projects are. There's several of them that are on the list. Remains to be seen which ones will get started first. But we know we need to do something for our historic wrestling program. It's the greatest sports program of any sport, with 35 national championships, and it's time for us to do something for them, to keep them training at the level that we want them to be. And then we'll continue to need to do things for football, and then we'll look at what we need to do for the softball program. That sport continues to grow. The fan interest in that sport continues to grow, and they're ranked in the top 10 in the country, and having a lot of success. And then we have our track program, who's also very successful. They don't have an indoor track facility, and in this part of the country, there's definitely certain times of the year that you can't train unless you've got an indoor space to train in, and they do remarkably well given the fact that they don't have that. And so that's something that we know we need to address at some point. So we have a lot of things on the list. It's just a matter of when do we get to them.
What is the size of the staff, just in round numbers, in the athletic department?
Yeah, we have about 220 full-time staff members.
Employees.
Employees, and that includes all of our coaching staff and administration. And then we employ hundreds of part-time staff, doing all kinds of, some of those are student workers, some of those are game day workers. It's in the hundreds.
Let me ask this kind of personal question. What day of the week is Chad's day off?
Well, that's a good question. Certainly this time of year, there's not such a thing completely. But this is also a fun time of the year. I get asked that a lot. People will see me at events and say, do you have to go to everything? Well, my response to that is I get to go to everything. I mean, that is the fun part of the job. That's why we do it, is to see our student athletes be able to compete and really do what they've dreamed of doing. And it's exciting to watch them get to do it at Oklahoma State.
You've been in the kind of the business 20 years now. How has recruiting changed? What is it? Is it, you picture a coach knocking on the door of a high school and then going and visited a recruit in their home. Is it different now than it was, say, then?
think it seems to be. I think that would be a great question for our coaches to answer, but just in the conversations with them, I think like everything else, social media has certainly, I think, changed the game of recruiting a great deal. Like you said, used to, so much more of it was probably, personal interaction, one-on-one. Obviously, there were phone calls and things like that, but we have a great team of people that they create a whole lot of content, that goes out on social media, and a big part of that is for recruiting purposes. And clearly, that was a group of staff members that we didn't have before, because there was no such thing. And so that I think is something that's definitely different. It continues to evolve. I think the competitiveness continues to increase, but I don't know, that is greatly different than a lot of other, industries, if you will. I mean, we've got to continue to stay competitive with our facilities and just kind of keep up with what is going on. But I think that is true of the academic side of the university. You see buildings and things like that are being built so that they can stay, up with the changing times and research and whatever needs to take place. You see that at hospitals, you see that at hotels. So I think everybody is just, when you're in a business that has to compete, that's just part of it.
Well, I think we've just got about a minute left, but let me ask you a corollary to Mick's question. You've been in this business about 20 years. How has fundraising changed from when you started, if it has?
Well, I don't know that it has a great deal, other than probably just the dollar figures.
Yeah.
I think that there's just probably more zeros involved than there once was, but that is still a very, very much a relationship-driven kind of enterprise. It is all about making a connection with someone, finding out what their passions are, finding out what sort of legacy they might want to leave, the support that they want to give. We're fortunate that we've got just a bunch of people who are very proud of Oklahoma State, proud to be part of Oklahoma State, and want to be part of supporting what it is that we do. They, I think, see the student athletes and how they represent the institution, and they want to be part of that. So I think that's something that's been true for a long time, I think just the numbers behind it have gotten bigger over time as this, as athletics has gone to where it is now.
Chad Weiberg is the athletic director at Oklahoma State. More with Chad after this.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank number 2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
The Vet Hero office at the University of Central Oklahoma, it is a one-stop shop for veterans when they're trying to get their education.
I call it my encore job. I get to take care of veterans. We help them transition. I was that guy that transitioned after 24 years, and in the end, GI Bill is a benefit that those soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine earned. It was the thing that made us the greatest country in the world coming out of World War II, and it will continue to do the same thing for this future generation of service members.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Meyers, and our guest is Oklahoma State Athletic Director Chad Weiberg.
Chad, we were chatting off camera that I wanted to have you explain what effect, if any, the NIL, the name, image, and likeness concepts have had on Oklahoma State athletics.
Yeah. Well, that is having an impact, I think, across college athletics.
Yes.
It's not affecting us, I don't think, any differently than it is. That is a significant change in college athletics. I think potentially as significant as anything that we have seen. And then you couple that with transfer portal and all of those things, it's significant, and we have spent a significant amount of time on it. We've invested resources in it. We've got a team of people that have worked very hard in the department on it with our coaches, and it is something that is evolving. I mean, it is different now than it was a month ago or 2 months ago, and certainly different than it was on July 1st. And I think a lot of it, the intent of it, the original intent of it, I think was really, really good. And I think that student athletes should have the ability to profit off of their name, image, and likeness as something that they own. But the guidelines and parameters around it, the guardrails are few. And so that has kind of created this evolution of where this is headed. And so I think everyone is trying to figure out what that looks like. But we're committed, to being part of that. If that is something that is taking place in college athletics, I think we'll feel comfortable that we'll be able to compete in that, just like we have in facilities or anything else.
So you haven't had I'm sorry.
That's all right.
You haven't had a year's experience with it yet.
No, it was enacted July 1st, and so we're just 8 months into it. And and a lot of this will take place through recruiting cycles, right. And so we've not, I don't think, been through any complete recruiting cycle with it. And I think it'll be different, 6 months from now and 12 months from now. It'll continue to evolve, and until perhaps there's some other guidelines or guardrails put around it. But until then, I think it'll continue to evolve. And I think the biggest thing for us at Oklahoma State is our coaches have done a terrific job, I think, of building a culture that fits Oklahoma State, that's part of a big part, I think, of what gives us success. And I think for them, they don't want anything, whether it's name, image, likeness, or anything else, to throw that off or cause problems with our culture. So what we're working on is trying to find how do we take this and make it fit in our culture and work for our culture.
The positive side of it.
Yep, absolutely.
Are there agents or business managers that are signing contracts with your athletes, and do they need to talk to the coach? How does that all play out?
Right. So we're encouraging, we would encourage our student athletes to get an agent, to get a marketing agent. Now there's a difference between marketing agents and player representative agents, and that's still against the rules for eligible athletes. But now you can get a marketing agent, and so we would encourage our student athletes to get representation from a marketing agent, because obviously, like anything else, you need to do your diligence and pick a good one and pick the right one. But they are someone that is going to lead you through this and make sure that you're doing things the right way and you're avoiding whatever pitfalls there may be. And now if student athletes are making money off of their name, image, likeness, there's taxes and all of those things that you need to be aware of. And so I think it's good to be surrounded by people that you trust and can help you with those types of issues. So.
Ever since intercollegiate athletics started, there have been conferences aligned, and then teams move in and out of conferences, and that's happening in the Big 12 conference right now. So how is this going to land, and is this an ongoing discussion amongst the athletic directors in the Big 12 about how this is shaking out and what year it's going to have its most dramatic effects?
Yes, it's an ongoing discussion. I think we are working on the timeline for when the 4 new schools come into the league. That may be different than the timeline of when the 2 that are leaving the league leave the league. So, there's a scenario where we could go from 10 schools to 14 schools before we end up at 12 schools. And so you can imagine the scheduling discussions and things like that
job. Boy,
that
I
are
tell
taking
you,
place.
that's got to be just loads of fun to deal with all of that.
But we feel really good about the Big 12 conference and how that ended up working out. We're excited about the 4 new schools that are coming into the league. I think this year, with the success not only of Oklahoma State and Baylor ending up in the championship game. We had the second largest crowd at the championship game, and the TV ratings were really good for that. And then the several of our other teams did well, and then 3 of the 4 schools coming in were ranked in the top 20 in the country, including the University of Cincinnati that made it to the playoffs. So I think all of that bodes very, very well for the new conference.
Well, let me ask you, what has been the big, I doubt that you have a biggest surprise since you have such a deep, long legacy at Oklahoma State, but there must be something that stands out as the biggest pleasant or unpleasant surprise you have faced since you assumed your job.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, now is just such a dynamic time in college athletics, and so being a new athletic director, I think part of it, I've questioned myself in terms of, am I doing everything I can do to figure this out, or am I providing the leadership that is needed? But it's helped because I've had conversations with athletic directors who have been in the business a lot longer than I have, and they're having the same questions. I mean, just because all of this is new to all of college athletics. But no, I wouldn't say that there's been anything that's been negatively surprising. We've got, I was fortunate to take the reins of a department that was in a really good position. Coach Holder has done a great job as his time as athletic director. The facilities that was built under his leadership. The coaches that we have are great and do a great job with our student athletes. And so, I think the main thing I'm trying to do is just keep that going and do everything I can to not screw that up.
Mm-hmm. What do you want our viewers to know? How can they help?
Well, I think, as far as Oklahoma State, fans, just so appreciative of what they do. We could not do what we do without them. And so, all we ask is that they just keep doing it. And, we need to fill our venues, fill the football stadium, fill the basketball arena, for lots of reasons. And it's not just the ticket revenue, but it is the environment, the home field environment that creates for our teams to compete, and our players love to compete, in full arenas and stadiums, and the competitive advantage that provides. But it's also just the perception of the institution. When those TV cameras come on and they see a full Boone Pickens, stadium, that sends a message to the rest of the country about what athletics and Cowboy football in that case, or Cowboy basketball, whatever it may be, is all about. And that does not happen without the fans and our donors and our supporters. And we're very fortunate to have really good ones. We had some of the best environments at our football games this last season, as I think I've seen anywhere. And so just want to keep that going.
Well, you have, I believe you have really good support from the top down, starting with your new president, President Shrum.
Yes.
And all those that are in between her and you. I'm very impressed with your leadership staff.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. Dr. Shrum is great. We started on the same day, and she is a former student athlete herself, and so she just, I think, number one, gets what it is that we do, and believes in what intercollegiate athletics does for a campus community and alumni base and all of those various things. And so it's been great to work with her. It was, I think, on our 21st day that conference realignment hit. And so we spent a lot more time together, I think, early on than we probably envisioned that we would. But I think that's been a really good thing, sometimes the best relationships are formed in those sorts of situations. And so it's been great to work with her, and very appreciative of the support and the leadership that she's provided for us. But she's doing great things for the campus and the university as well. And so I look forward to seeing what happens under her leadoership.
Well, good luck to the men and women in the spring sports.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on The Verdict,
well,
and letting our viewers learn more about what you're doing down there.
Thank you very much.
All right. Kent and I'll have a final word after this.
It used to be okay in teachers' lounges. It used to be okay in maternity wards. It was okay in sporting arenas, college campuses, and office spaces. But now that we understand the deadly dangers of secondhand smoke, that's not okay anymore. So why is it okay that thousands of employees are exposed to it every day at work? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's protect hardworking Oklahomans. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Well, you look across the sports, Oklahoma State's athletic departments on just about every cylinder you can imagine.
Well, they just continue to excel, and just when you think they won't do any more, another team pops up that's better than what you had expected, and they are operating at a very high level.
Sometimes there are jobs where you think one person can't possibly do all that. I mean, and you look at an athletic director at a Division I school today, and you think, where do you start? You know, when the alarm clock goes off, do you think, oh no, another
days
day
off.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we really appreciate Chad Weiberg coming on The Verdict. We had his predecessor on many times. Would you say 13 times? Mike Holder was here.
Yeah.
That was Chad's first visit, but not his last. Website for more information about his athletic department, go.okstate.edu. And we have a website, theverdict.tv. Tell us about a guest you'd like to see or a subject you'd like to see us cover. That's going to do it for this week's show. We'll see you next week on The Verdict.